Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. It's just gone a couple of minutes past midday here, making it a few minutes past 1100 UTC. A really big shout out to everybody watching this live today, as well as everybody on catch up, and a special mention, Addo Fitness, my friend. Great to see you. We'll be working a lot closer together in the future, but also a really big shout out to everybody watching this on catch up as well. I had some wonderful messages from a lot of you recently, and as some of you or most of you will know, some of you maybe don't, today is our chart request show. All right, so if you do have any instruments, crypto or otherwise, that you want me to take a look at, please do just let me know in the chats, and we will get them, or I will get them covered for you as long as time allows. Burnside, my friend, how are you doing? Horace, great to see you. And everybody else that's here in the background. Apologies if I've missed your comments. Lots coming in on the chats today. And we've got a really, really busy show coming up. We've got a lot of requests to cover. So far, we've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Tron. We've got Vert AI, Estate X, really big investment of mine that I introduced you to before. So I want to take a look and see how that was doing. Bought up some of the dip recently, as we kind of outlined on the show. So we're going to take a look over those charts and make sure we get everything covered. Of course we can, mate. Render. No problem whatsoever. So look, we've got the Bitcoin chart on the screen, right? But what I really want to start with is the news, okay? Now, yeah, I know it's the non-sexy part of this. You guys, I know you want to see charts and degen plays and bits and pieces, but please do believe me, having an understanding of this, as well as even if it's just a very broad and shallow understanding of the macro environment, is really, really important. And the reason that today is particularly important, and our focus is always on the US market, quick snapshot of that, biggest market in the world, key driver, and they are the world's reserve currency. All right, so we can see here we've got FOMC meeting minutes. All right, now some of you might look at these engagements and panic and think, oh god, every time the Fed seems to kind of get involved in things, it typically, you know, injects a lot of volatility into the market. Well, it's understanding the backdrop for this as well, and the fact that, you know, the last set of rates were a pause. You know, we're kind of seeing a little bit of movement in that as well. If you look at things like poly markets, which is working out the betting spread on the amount of rate cuts left for the year, it's still favorable to have two more rate cuts in the US, 225 basis point rate cuts. All right. Now, the issue exists if, you know, we get a hawkish, which is akin to being bearish tone coming out of the Fed, and they say things like, you know, actually, we're more concerned about inflation, or, you know, the soft job data, or, you know, everything that's coming in, and we're worried about growth, or we're worried about this or that, anything that leads them to saying that they might not see more cuts on the horizon. Now, one of the big risks at the moment is the soft job data, and the fact that it doesn't really force the Fed's hand to cut anytime soon. All right, their job ultimately is to find stability, to get inflation down to target, and GDP on target as well. You know, and we've got a lot of kind of turbulence being re-injected again now after we've had the tariff news from Trump. They're still not settled. We've obviously got the very sad geopolitical escalations that are going on as well. But, you know, there's a lot of other factors, the big, beautiful bill being one of them, right, that Trump's trying to get through. A lot of people worried that this is going to cause a lot of inflationary pressure. So when there's a lot of uncertainty, we tend to see the markets kind of cramming a little bit for risk assets, but we've seen a very, very strong and prominent NASDAQ, S&P 500, for example. The Magnificent Seven stocks have been performing incredibly well. So we're going to take a look at those as well. But do have this on your horizon today. For me, it's right towards the end of this. It's just under 7 hours from now until we get the FOMC meeting minutes. And just to remember, because this is the last public live show of the week, Thursday we're going into unemployment claims, and we do have FOMC member Waller speaking as well. Again, you know, the impact for that should be minimal, but always worth kind of watching out for this. There's a few key people in the FOMC that really want to kind of, you know, if they flip particularly dovish, which is akin to being bullish, could really kind of change the course and the narrative for this. And then soft towards the end with no US data coming in. Okay, Raw Motion, hello mate. Not sure if you're trying to share a chart with me. Unfortunately, might get blocked on here because it's a link, but if you want to just pop in the chat what the ticker is, I'd be more than happy to take a look for you. So I've added render on there as well, Horace. So let's get ourselves into the charts. I'll stop waffling on and let's see where we are. So we're going to start here with the daily chart on Bitcoin, all right? And something else I'm going to get you can probably seen the banner as well, and you saw the advert at the beginning. Our wonderful partners over at OKX are doing a brilliant giveaway at the moment. You can win VIP tickets to the Dutch Grand Prix. No secret that the Netherlands is one of my favorite countries and some of my favorite people in the world. I spent a lot of time over there, and to get to go over there in magnificent orange and watch the Grand Prix, especially, you know, with Max Verstappen, the drama that we just recently had at the British Grand Prix as well, is just such a great place to be. And they're just such great events. But you can also, there's a ton of other prizes as well, right? So you can win a load of McLaren F1 team caps and I believe some other merch. So I will cover that at the end as well, guys, so you can see, because they just let me know this morning they're doing this giveaway and they want everybody to be involved. Ultimately, who doesn't love free stuff? I'm absolutely caked in merch, by the way. I absolutely love it, going to the shows and traveling and meeting these people. Everything has a little bit of a memory to it. So where are we at the moment? We're going to cover that at the end. But what we can see here is what's currently capping the market. All right, if we just squeeze things back in here, we can see the prior all-time high that was back set in January this year. And if we extract that along here, we can see what happened here. Price deviated, got back underneath, retested this area as well. Whenever you're seeing these moves, deviations, breakdowns, and retests of these areas, think of it like this. The reason that these things are often so accurate is because people are piling late into longs here, right? As price breaks down, those who are holding through the drawdown, yeah, I mean, they're watching the account go deep into the red. When somebody drives back to this area here, it allows them to mitigate. So imagine you were long here, you see the market break down aggressively, you've got new news coming to light, new data that you're processing, you say to yourself, right, pullbacks here, I'm going to get out, scale out of this position, and then if I believe the market's breaking down, I'm going to jump on board with the trend. Maybe you wait for a structural break here, for example. Yeah, just be patient. And then this gives you a great opportunity to short when you've got new market information to get involved. Ultimately, this ends up being the deviation. Price gets back underneath this level. We retest this area and sell off. So the reason that these areas become really key, the same as any areas that we see lots of engagement. So this, for example, we're seeing a lot of wicks coming down into this area. It's a weekly gap. We had some key lows down here as well. It's a great place. It's a gigantic liquidity pool, basically. And what the markets do so well is most people, and you'll hear the term retail used a lot. It doesn't just mean someone pissing about with $100 account, by the way. You know, this is basically everyone under fund level traders. Yeah, so I'm retail, for example, because I'm not trading with billions and billions of dollars, right? Or hundreds of millions, etc., like funds. These areas are really key to know. So when we're coming back up to these areas, we have to be cautious. We had a huge expansion candle again coming up into this area here. What did we do? We left a failure swing here, not a swing failure. Swing failure is when price takes a high or a low, yeah, and then that liquidity basically rejects price and it comes back down. This is a failure swing because it didn't quite get to this level here, which left us equal highs. So we've got the prior all-time high above us. We've got the current swing high. We've got equal highs resting here. And then we've got the actual all-time high here. So at 111,987 here on OKX. So with price consolidating below here on a higher time frame, this is a very, very dangerous place to get long, okay? But what it does mean is that we can use the lower time frames to try and finesse early stage entries to try and get ourselves a piece of the trend, because look, on the daily here, price higher, 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 low, higher, higher, looks to be setting a higher low here. What I like to try and do in these situations is I either sit sidelined until we get a clear breakout above this level, all right? And again, you want to see breakout and a retest of this level. You want to turn it from resistance to support, yeah? What you want is people to be trying to short this aggressively, that breakout squeezing those people to pieces, stopping a lot of people out. And then again, that mitigation move as price comes back to that area, those people are allowed to get out, or it gives them the opportunity to minimize the damage and then jump on board with the uptrend, which, comes in when we see a lot of strength. So we're going to look at how we can set our plans out. Well, I call them conditions, right? I want to see a set of conditions. And what we'll notice in a moment is how price is basically just crabbing along at the moment. We've had no major news catalysts this week. But we have very prosperous equity markets at the moment, and the risk bid is certainly being underpinned. JG, did somebody say free merch? Love that. Yeah, absolutely. Who doesn't love free stuff, right? Jojo, dear friend of ours, how you doing, my friend? Jojo's a wonderful traditional market trader as well as crypto as well. We've had many great conversations over the years about these, so I'm sure she's got some very, very keen insights into the market. Now, for anybody that's new to the show, I'm not going to really kind of pile into the education on this one. You can always watch the Monday shows, which are a little bit more focused on that. When we're engaging these key levels, we're watching for how price reacts. Let's use this as an example. Price driving into a weekly gap. What do we expect with gaps? They're inefficiencies, right? When price moves incredibly quickly, in this case, bullishly, we notice that these wicks don't overlap. This is a daily chart, but this is a weekly gap, obviously from a weekly chart. Now, when we get these inefficiencies, the markets like to rebalance these areas. So I think of it like this: the failure for order pairing on the way up, meaning that the buying was so strong coming up here that there was a lot of slippage on the way up. The market wasn't crossing over, right? It wasn't moving efficiently, where we can see in moves like this, the market grinding away, refilling the gaps, not leaving any gaps between the other candles, and then engaging with key liquidity, which are highs, lows, gaps, and order blocks, which are areas of demand and areas of supply. All right, and we'll cover those in a little bit. Jojo, ETH looks ready anytime. It really does. And with the lagging we've seen from ETH, a lot of bad press towards it, really took its time to get going at the moment. You've always got to love it when you see things like that going off, because they just sit there like they're absolutely primed. We're going to take a look at ETH next, actually. So when we engage with these areas, if we're seeing wicks like this, we're seeing absorption come in here, right? So look, price dives into this low, into this weekly gap. We never want to be shorting into an area like this. We're too late for the short. Then when price regains this area, you've got to say, well, actually, if the selling is really strong, and if people don't consider Bitcoin value at this price, then there should be nothing really stopping price continuing on its way down. The fact that these long downside wicks show us absorption, they show us buyers stepping in, then we get this really large expansion candle here. And then we're targeting the next liquidity, right? Which is what we've been doing on the way up. However, we're now at that key liquidity, so we need to be a little bit cautious. Right, the last thing really to cover on the daily before we move down to the 4 hour here is what are the conditions on a daily scale? Well, I've said it since we've been in it, but with this daily gap, let's highlight this in green for anybody that's maybe new to these concepts again. The gap between us, a 3 candle pattern, candle 1, candle 2, candle 3. The gaps, if they exist, they obviously don't always, as we can see in here, needs to be the high of candle 1 to the low of candle 3. If we're looking for a bearish gap, all right, then it's obviously the low of candle 1 to the high of candle 3. These areas here can wick through them. I got no problem with that. It rebalances the area. It means that the price action's efficient again. But while it holds, I don't want to be short this instrument, right? I will if we break down. So my conditions, which is shared with members every day, but also I do release a free snippet of the report that I do on a Sunday night for the company as well. The conditions were really, really simple. No shorts unless we close aggressively, a full body candle, what I call a strong close, below both of these levels. And then it would be a case of looking for price to retest them before shorting down, first of all, to these lows, all right, but then also down towards the gap, all right, this untested or unfilled daily gap. So ultimately, we're still looking long here. We're just doing so a little bit cautiously, right? So as we can see in here, well, what was this? So we had this 4 hour gap that was in here. Price violated that and got back above it. So this became a key condition, actually. And we got some really kind of unclean price action below here. So you can get this sometimes when the markets are a little bit illiquid. We got a little slither of a close, but we recovered it again really quickly. So this was originally a bearish gap. So look at all the rejection through here. So when price popped above here, I said, look, as long as we hold this area, then we're long, all right? And we're targeting these highs. Now, price did break down here, snagged in a very, very small bearish gap over here, which has now been rebalanced. So price now has the opportunity to really kind of push on from here. So on a 4 hour scale, I'm looking for the conditions to get involved. And if I wanted confirmation from here, like I said, I'm still long this instrument on the lower time frames, right? Because I want to be looking to probe out and build low time frame swings or scalp trades that I can then build into larger positions should we get continuation. If I wanted to see some kind of extra support here, then I'm looking for the order blocks, right, or the areas of demand. So this is my favorite one. Why? Because this is a bearish candle that drives down and takes liquidity from this low. And then the way that I certainly look at the markets is that this then becomes a 4-hour order block or area of demand, right? Once we close above the body, look how price ticks into this area here, buyers step in and we move away. Now what we've got here is a secondary situation where we closed above this one, confirming this. Price closed above just a smidgen here. We got a confirmation one here. Price then took quite a deep dive back into this area, which I wasn't a huge fan of, I have to admit. I like to see price respecting kind of the 50% of the bodies here. That for me is just a signal that buyers are starting to step in, but we recovered it pretty quickly. Now we're back above this area. Okay, so again, longs working out pretty decently there on the lower time frames. So now if we want to follow those principles up in 42 minutes when we finish the live show, then we're going to have this candle close, all right? If the candle closes there, then we confirm this as a continuation order block or area of demand. The most high probability ones come from areas where we've taken liquidity, right? Again, the whole principle of it, this is people driving the market down and it reverses on them here, returns to this area, provide a great place to mitigate, to get out of your drawdown and then jump on board with the trend or to potentially hedge as well. That's why we often see those big explosive moves after situations like that. So waiting for a close on a 4-hour scale above 108.878, all right? If I was looking to be super aggressive here, then I was watching this play out through London and it looks like we're really getting the bid here because this was a really lovely setup. Again, I really like these type of setups because we're getting kind of key confluence at different areas, right? So we got the bullish gap here. Just do this in green again for anyone. When you look at my charts, you'll see bullish gaps and bearish gaps both in gray, all right? But sometimes this is just helpful for new people. So what do we got? Price moves into this expansion here. The other thing that we've got, and again, you'll hear this term used a lot in trading, right? But is confluence. So, we get back above here and all of a sudden we violate a bearish gap while we're up here and then we're being supported by a bullish gap. It's just nothing to be bearish about there, right? The secondary form of confirmation comes in here when we have our hourly order block. Now, a lot of people say to me like, yeah, that's all well and good, but I thought you were waiting for like the 4-hour close or this close or the daily. No, it all depends on your time frames, right? What I kind of advocate to my students, especially, or anybody that's with us in terms of members, or anybody that really takes the time to kind of reach out and ask, two things. One, you have to understand what type of trader you are and what time frame you can bring. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people come to me as I'm an intraday specialist and will say, okay, I want to learn how to do scalp trading or to be, an intraday trader. And it's like, okay, what are your current conditions like? What are you? What's your time frame allowance? What are you looking to do? How much time can you bring to this? And they're like, I've got 3 kids at home, really busy work life and family life. It's like, well, day trading is going to probably be pretty tricky, right? So you're probably better off looking to be positional trading or longer term swing trading that involve a lot less in, daily time commitment whilst you've got other things going on. And then off the back of that, it's just really diving down and understanding that niche. All right. You always want to build your knowledge base in the background, like your library of knowledge. But what you don't want to do is, try and spread yourself too thin. I see so many traders come in and they'll see a moving average strategy one day that they're trying to trade. Then the next day they're trying to do gap trading. Then the next day they're trying to use this indicator. And the next day they're trying to, you have to be really, really focused on who you are, what really speaks to you and what kind of trader you want to develop into. And then that's where the truth to finding consistency comes from as well. Jojo bringing up some good points in the comments here. Solana, we're going to take a look at that in a few moments as well after Ethereum. So Sol as well, but we need a couple more days. Crypto hearing is tonight. Lawmakers are reviewing 2 bills, the Genius Act for stablecoins and the Clarity Act for broader digital asset regulation, including CBDC bans. It's that central bank digital currency for anybody that might not know. Really good points there from Jojo, and we're going to take a look at how that's affecting the Solana price action at the moment. But just to go back and finish off my point, if I was looking at this on a daily chart, what I want to do is I want to frame on a chart and I want to execute on another chart. Ideally, I want 3 views. I have the higher time frame, say I'm using something like a daily chart, then we understand the daily chart, we know we're down in this bullish daily gap, right? So we know price is finding support there. Great. So then how do we refine that further? Well, I would move from a daily chart, onto a 1 hour chart, which is what we're on now. So I'd say, okay, well, while we're finding support in here, where would I look for longs? Well, really simple. I would look for longs in bullish gaps. Yeah, so even though we didn't get the continuation on this one we wanted, as an intraday trade, it was beautiful, right? Plenty of price action in there to book some winners. We want to see price taking out clean lows as we got here, or we want to see price reacting at bullish gaps, or we use our order blocks. Yeah. So these are key areas. Now we've closed above this. Any pullbacks to this area that we find support, if I see wicks coming back down below this, I would use, say, around about a 5 to a 10-minute chart to execute them. Then this is a really good area for longs. Ultimately, we got this at the end of the London session. It's just such a beautifully clean move. So price action looking good on Bitcoin at the moment. And my initial targets for this are 109,179, which represents the high of these 3 untapped highs here, which make them relatively equal and a really, really good draw on liquidity. All right. Always think about the market in terms of the major players, not the minnows. All right. So if the most informed, well-resourced traders have been long from down here somewhere, or took longs here, or took longs here with size, they need a clear and obvious place to sell back to the market at a higher price. All right. Why is there a load of liquidity above here? Because people that were short here, here, and here would still have stops up there potentially, especially the ways that funds trade, because they trade over a longer time horizon. This will also trigger breakout traders. Yeah. So when the stop loss is triggered here, you'll get that puked back into the market in the form of a market sell order typically. And then what you're doing is you're creating a ton of buy orders up here. A market buy order. Yeah, so it's buying it back because it's getting stopped out. Then the breakout traders are getting into the buys. The algorithms start to move as well. Well, what does that allow you to do? If you've got that many buy orders up there, if you're a major player or a group of major players, they become really great areas to sell into. You also have people taking profit at these levels who are selling as well. It just allows them to really fill all of their positions with minimum slippage. So that's what we look at them. All right. Grandmaster Pikachu, how are you doing? Narratives, everything. He weaves the tail. One day I'll speak like this. I'm sure you do, mate. You've always struck me as pretty knowledgeable. So that's where we are with Bitcoin. At the moment isn't the time to jump into this, even on an intraday basis. I think, any pullbacks to these areas, if we hold these up, then I think we move higher. I think breaking down on an hourly scale below, closing below this gap, short term, I think we would fail to set the 4-hour OB as well. And I think we're looking for a deeper dive into these lows. We do have, especially on the lower time frames like the hourly, some quite nice trend line liquidity here. All right, if we take a look at all these lows, this low here, this low here, this low here, and this low here have all been left intact. So if price does break down, what I'll be looking for is how price reacts. So I'd want to see it close below this level, and I want to see this area retested, and then target 1, watch to see the reaction here. If we get breakdown continuation, target 2, and ultimately make that look a little bit neater. We've got target 3 down here at the bottom right, which we've identified on our higher time frame. So that's where we are with Bitcoin. We're just going to use those same principles, and now we're going to drive this out across some of the other instruments, okay? So let's take a look at ETH. And what we do here is we've been using our charts that have got all our messy annotations on, which have been on there for months and months and years. And actually, it's been a very, very interesting one recently, because one of the key areas we identified, you can see this from Monday's show as well, is this was the 50% Fibonacci retracement of this impulse leg lower. Yeah, this distribution leg. And then we've got, this was the golden pocket. So the plan, again, high time frame gap, strong reaction here. Time frame aligned daily gap, strong reaction. Price comes back up, sets a bullish gap. Yeah, so we see price recover, structure here, drive down into this bullish gap, take liquidity from the lows. This is where we look to be a buyer, but we need upside targets, right? If the 50% level isn't going to reject price, then we want to see that expansion go up, and we want to see how price is engaging with the Fibonacci at the golden pocket. Now, what I like about this is typically when I'm trading, let me see if I've got the fib on here. So if not, I'll just pop one back on. No. Right, so there's the Fibonacci. We can see the golden pocket here. We can see that this line represents the 50%. Now, it's very similar with areas of supply and demand or order blocks, when I look at them, I'm mostly interested in the first engagement. It's kind of the same with highs and lows, right? You know, the analogy of the hot water test is something that I've always paid a lot of attention to, right? Which is the idea that you've got 2 pans of water, one full of boiling water, one full of tepid water. I know a lot of you would have heard this before and probably get sick of it, but it is a pretty good bad analogy, if that makes sense. Pan full of hot water, boiling water, a pan full of tepid water. If you put your hand into the tepid water, so let's say the 50% here is the tepid water, you can keep your hand in there for quite a while, right? There's nothing kind of making you pull your hand out. Ultimately, you can then dip a little bit deeper into that pot of water as well and reach what's at the bottom. So it's not really showing you any resistance versus a reaction like this. Yeah. So let's say, for example, that this is the high. Well, this is the high. There's your pot of hot water. Look what happens. Hand in, straight out. You can't spend any time in there. When you see strong rejections like that, chances are then you're looking for safety somewhere else, and you think about bringing your hand to safety, where you think about these lows here that are these great liquidity pools, right? So when we see these kind of reactions, that's what we're gauging. Now, what we saw here was an initial drop. Fine. We had the engagement with the golden pocket and price pulled back. But where did it pull back to? Remember, we've always got to ask ourselves, where is price delivering from? What's the story of price? Price is expanding here. Yeah, we're seeing bullish price action. We don't want to overthink this. What areas could we look to be involved as buyers? Well, dumb money buys into resistance. Yeah. Smart traders and investors wait for price to come into key levels where they know they've got a good risk to reward and where they have a set of conditions that allow them to maximize the risk to reward, but also set good risk parameters. So while we hold this gap, we expect price to push up. So why am I not as concerned about the golden pocket anymore? Well, quite simply, if sellers were there before, they tried to sell this and they failed. Price pulled back a little bit, but the buyers took over again, right? So that's what we're looking at here. We're seeing strength here on Solana. On Ethereum. Sorry, let me just hide this. All right, so while we continue to hold the gap here, then it's really, really simple for me. Price is moving up to higher liquidity targets. So what my plan is here is to see what price does when it reacts here, but also to look at how this reaction catalyzes today. Ideally, what we would want to see is a strong close, meaning a decent body candle closing above this high, showing us that price is kind of ready for some form of continuation here. All right, we can see here exactly the same principle. So this was the local high. We saw a big body, strong close, meaning we got a lot of body above here, minimal upside wick, showing that the buyers are definitely in control. When we close here, we look for these areas to be retested and act as support. Now we're looking for that same thing to play out here or at this level here. All right, so upside targets up to 2,680.32 here on Ethereum. We'll just take a quick look at this on the 4 hour as well. All right, so 4 hour conditions were really nice and clean here. ETH really respecting these a lot cleaner than Bitcoin, right? So the conditions were really simple. So we've laid these out. This has all been part of the plan. We kind of went through this on Monday. All right, we got the drawback to this. This was a bearish gap, suppressed price all the way through here. It was capping price to the upside here. Strong breakout above, retest long, back to the area. Remember, if we're within, which we are, a high time frame bullish gap, and then we've got a time frame aligned bullish point of interest here, an order block, a gap, remember, or if we sweep down into a low, well, these are the areas that we want to start building long positions, right? I don't just set limit orders. What I do is on a lower time frame, when we come into a key point of interest, let's just use this gap as an example. We'll use this higher. So let's say for a long position, what I want to see is price come in, yeah, to a higher time frame level, be that a low, we're looking at a long scenario here, obviously, right, or a gap. Then I want to see that. So then I want to see a recovery of that and a strong recovery, right? I want to see that impulse move higher like this. So we've taken local liquidity, we've taken a higher time frame liquidity from the lows. We've seen price have that strong reaction. And then we can look for bullish gaps in this area to get involved in. We can look to be involved on the breakout line or the breaker line, as I've called it for many years, which is a system that I used to teach to students. All right, very simple. It's basically just an easier way for people to look at what would ultimately be a breaker candle in here. And I'd look for something like that in and around the 15-minute if I was framing this on a 4 hour. Yeah, so this is the kind of pattern we would look for on a 15-minute, but in here. All right. So let's just pop that away. So yeah, bullish here on ETH. I think it's hard not to be really, but we still need to see, some confirmation. But like I said before on the daily, loving this close above. Price has drawn back beautifully. Remember, really, when you want to be long, when you're at support, if you've got that breakout, you want to wait for price to just have that little bit of a pullback. Sometimes you'll be left waiting. Sometimes price will just run off without you. You don't want to get in the habit of buying into these strong moves up, right? For example, if we look at this move, a lot of buyers coming in at this point here into a high, they all get wiped out, right? Ultimately, price breaks down even further from here, but you'd be much better served waiting for price to retreat back here to these highs or this gap, yeah, and seeing if you get those long setups. And if you do here, yeah, and you get stopped out, don't worry, because the market's giving you such valuable information, yeah? So this was the bullish gap here. So we've said, fine, we've been really patient. We've got a strong breakout here. We're now waiting to get involved. Maybe you longed off this candle here, and then you get stopped out. Well, what happens? This candle here closes below the gap. When we close below a gap, it becomes an inversion, and we treat this as resistance. And this is what sets you up beautifully for shorts down into these levels, yeah? So don't be afraid to take losses in the market. As long as you're doing it with a system, they can teach you so much. And often the market will just tip its hat to you a little bit, right? People get frustrated, annoyed when they get stopped out. They feel that things are unfair or the market's corrupt or blah, 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 blah. All that time, all that's going on is more composed traders and systems are stepping in to take the other side of that. So yeah, like this here at the moment on ETH, obviously caveat here is we need to hold this. As long as we continue to hold this daily gap here, then I'm still bullish. Once we close above this, I'm going to get this off the chart, all right, so that we're going to remove the golden pockets. I really don't think it's that relevant now, just using it on here to kind of keep the running narrative across. But by next Monday's show, I think we'll probably remove that. For those of you that don't know, we use the same charts all the time. We have been for years. We leave all of the TA on there so it holds the show accountable, or my thoughts and my thoughts and plans accountable. Remember, none of this is financial advice. This is purely plugging into how I see the markets and how I've built my career as a trader. But we only ever get rid of stuff on the show, right? It just means that we always have some accountability for the actions. So while we're holding this, still looking for price to push up, not really much changed here on ETH. So let's take a look at Solana, especially after our good friend Jojo's update here as well, which is really, really interesting. I know this looks really messy in here, but I will start to clean some of this up, which we'll actually do today. So let me just show you this very quickly, because there was a weekly inversion here. When we closed below this bullish gap here, that's what allowed us to step in, and we caught a lot of nice short trades here. Really, really sorry for anybody that's a key supporter of Solana. It's never anything against the instrument. You can just delete what's on here if you want. You trade the fundamentals, and then we align that with price action. But when things started to break down here, the market conditions turn. Equities were coming under a little bit of pressure here. We saw risk off assets performing quite well. This was all we needed to know, that crypto was going to get at least a little bit of a short-term corrective move. When we closed below this here, look at the wicks back up into this area as we sold off. So just to give you context as to why that's up here, because we're still at this level of weekly resistance here now, okay? However, price has rebalanced through this inversion gap here, so I do still see us as being able to make moves within this. So now onto this messy lot. Well, quite simply, the same as ETH, right? We got a lovely reaction down here at this low. We left the liquidity, long downside wick, showing us buyers have stepped in. We get the confirmation candle here. That's a beautiful bullish engulfing candle, all right? Actually inverts a very small slither of a gap here as well. The close of this candle creates our bullish gap here. Price draws down into here. This is where we're looking for buyers. The confirmation entry was on the close above, these down close candles here, and these. They're the consecutive candles that drove in to take liquidity. So this provides the high probability order block or area of demand. This one was more localized as well and new. So we were looking at both. We got the close above both here. This candle then set the bullish gap. So remember, the plan is always we're looking for longs within the gap here or from the order block. That's continued to hold. Price has kind of stuttered along a little bit, right? But ultimately intraday has provided us some really, really nice setups. We're going to look at this now on the 4 hour. To just build a little bit more context into this. So we can see here, this was from Tuesday. So this was obviously our Monday show, where we outlined that this is the gap that we're looking to long. So look, high time frame bullish gap on the daily. 4-hour gap here as well, sat perfectly. And if you wanted even more confirmation, so we got this early stage breakout here as well, which is where we were chasing these equal highs. This did break down on us when it came back down below here, and especially when we got this close, this order block here got invalidated. I did say at the time, you always want to be a little bit cautious if you've got these very, very skinny order blocks here, right? But we got a lovely retest of it here, and this ultimately led to some price action moving higher. Explained it through with members at the time, actually. My exact reasonings for wanting to be long here is very similar with an equities move we were planning, and these candles were looking really nice, but ultimately that was wrong. Price broke back down, but we still held the gap. Yeah, big bullish gap. Price held this, as I explained on Monday. While we hold these gaps, then we're not short. We're just looking for long setups. And then what do we get here? We get a beautiful H4 inversion gap. So just remembering the inversion gaps. All right, as we've got here, move this one along as well, just as a little treat for my OCD. Right, look at the stacked support. If you wanted more confirmation, when we closed above this bearish gap here with this candle, look how price then drives in, find lots of support through here, and then clear your mind, look at the high time frame and say, if I had a ton of money invested in this, if I was a fund or a major player or a collection of individuals, and I want to sell this back to the market, minimizing my slippage, and I want to sell at clear and obvious levels. And there's very few clearer or more obvious than equal untapped highs. Now we've got 1, 2, 3 through here. So this is what we're looking. So Solana for me here is all about the reaction of this high. While we're on here, we're looking really good. All right. We're holding this area. Price is moving up. Higher high, higher low. Now moving to make another higher high. But again, I want to see a strong breakout. I want to see a good body candle close above here on the 4-hour. Then I want to see this area retested. I want to see these equal highs then flip to support. All this absorption that we saw here from these upside wicks, all coming in from the sellers, we will then want to see that become a base of support for price to push up higher, right? So that's where we are on Solana. So somebody asked for TRX, didn't they, for Tron? So let's take a look. I think we've covered it on this chart for a while, actually. I think this is back on our OKX chart, which is fine. If we've got a nice clean chart, there is nothing wrong with that. Okay, so first thing that this tells me here on a weekly scale, or two things, is one, our upside target for the higher time frames or immediate target is sat here at 0.29518. The next thing that I really like about this is this. We've set this weekly order block here. Price closed above it last week, meaning that this area should look to offer some form of support. It is a high probability order block as well because we took liquidity, which I really like. So looking at this, I really like this type of price action, right? Would have liked a little bit of gapping here as we shifted structure, but ultimately we got it here, which is a real sign that buyers are stepping in. I'm then looking left to the sell side and saying, okay, what really can reject price here? Well, these relative equal highs across here are always a target, but we tagged into them. So then just wait patiently. Price draws back down here into the gap. Buyers, draws back down again, buyers are good again. So looking at that, moving this onto a daily here on Tron. I always lie looking at these, right? This massive scam wick thing here, right? But this is really, really key. You know, if there was enough liquidity up there or enough sellers that created that candle wick, then we want to be careful when we're driving back into there, right? But look how price engages with these high time frame levels, strong close above, and then look how price holds this here. Yeah. Now, remembering, obviously, that's through to the weekly close, which is here. But now I'm looking for this area to offer support. What I'm more interested in here, actually, because we're in this kind of consolidation range, I'm going to base this a lot more on the 4-hour. Okay, again, we see a lack of gapping in here, right? Very balanced, consistent price action coming through. So this is where I'm saying, okay, if we're grinding up here, what have we got? What's quite interesting is this, I think. You've seen a breakout of this trend line here. If we're doing a best fit one, you could even include these wicks in here. We've had the breakout at this level now, so we really want to kind of see this area hold through here. So if I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, okay, well, where would price be drawing buyers from? If we've got these down close candles here, creating, again, this area of demand, then price is currently driving down into that here. So we've got that price closed above it here. We haven't really seen much continuation. Price looking a little bit I wouldn't say weak here, but it's looking like it's kind of holding with nothing really remarkable to the upside. So what do I do here? I drive down onto a lower time frame to find my conditions. Now, we've had a nice reaction up to here. Let's take a Fibonacci out and see what we've got. And price set the high, beautiful reaction here at the golden pocket. Look at that. Now price has driven up into a bearish gap here on the hourly. So all of a sudden, I have a crystal clear condition, right? So I'm just going to label this up. So this is what I want to do. I want a lot of clarity here. Otherwise, I'm kind of saying to myself, I'm going to stay sidelined until I do. You don't want to force these things. First of all, I love these kind of rounded long wick bottoms or tops. Yeah, in this case, we got the bottom here. You see price driving. You can just see the buyers stepping in here, right? However, this is the key resistance above us. So while we've got this bearish gap, let me do this in red. My conditions are really, really simple. Hourly close above this, and I'm happy to then start to position for some longs. Until then, I'm showing caution here. All right, I want to see this hourly gap closed above. Right, let's take a look over. I've got a couple of requests in here. We've got, what have we got? Vertical AI. I want to run over a state X with you guys as well. I had a lovely little pump on that over the last couple of days. Not for kudos for me, but I'm really, really happy for the team. They're some of the best people in the space, in my opinion, and they really have got a project, a company, a team that are going to disrupt the property market in a big way. So the other one was Render as well. So let's go through and tick them off in order. If anybody has got any others they want me to take a look at, please do let me know. Let's take a look. I put these on here this morning. Let's see where we are with that. Okie doke. So looking for price to kind of come into this level. We did get that nice close above it. I remember when we were looking at this here on the daily, and this was a really good sign, but the word of caution did pay out quite well here. And I'll tell you for why that should. Let's see, pop that in green. Yeah, the caution did pay out here because when we got this close above, quite simply, coming back down into this area is not a great sign. You want to see these long downside wicks, right? So when we got this move here, it started to look really good for a push up. However, we were quite high. Whenever we take out, so we took out equal highs here and here, key liquidity pool. When price then dips back down, bearing in mind our focus was on here. Let me just move this. All right, we saw price goes up and then very quickly get down below. So what we're saying to ourselves here, we're not panicking, right? A lot of people then start to think, oh God, it's going to zero or blah, blah, blah. No, we're just in the corrective phase. Price has taken liquidity from the high, so now it's correcting. If this is considered fair value in this area, then these kind of areas should allow buyers to step in and push price higher. So good longs from this area, and now we're coming back down. So immediately, I have a great set of conditions here on the daily. This level's capping price. It's tried to get above it once, failed, twice, failed, 3 times, failed. This gap here has supported price once, twice. We have key liquidity below this wick here and this wick here. If I want to see really strong price action, I want to see a bullish reaction here. I believe price is breaking down to this level at the moment, 0.17226.224. And then we've got this low, which is sat out below. All right. So what I want to see is I want to see this gap hold and these lows hold. I'd love to see price come all the way down to here, maybe even back into this gap, and then recover this, leaving a long. So I would want to see the body do something like this, come into the gap, yeah? And then we get like a long downside wick that just takes all this liquidity, but the body closes back in here. For me, that would be super bullish. I'd be happy to then step in here and say, right, we're back above this level. We've cleared out late longs, yeah? We've seen the buyers step back in, then move in again on a shorter term basis, attacking these highs, yeah? Which have played a pivotal role in capping price, but ultimately looking for the fresh liquidity sat above these equal highs here. And then again, look, we've got this kind of fast move down. If we can establish ourselves above here, this is where we can really start to move. So we don't need to drive much deeper on this. Whenever you've got a really clear set of conditions, that's what I'm looking for. Now, if price doesn't follow that path, and obviously it doesn't have to listen to me, then I still need confirmation from somewhere. So on the 4 hour, we're presented with this low, yeah? If we take that low and get a good recovery here, then we can look to maybe take some short-term positions because we've had a bullish reaction at this gap. However, we need to be aware we've got these kind of adjoined gaps above us here as well. So, you know, if we wanted to take the safer trade, or if I wanted to take a safer position here, then I would be waiting for these areas to be closed above. But then we need to also remember we're slamming pretty aggressively into resistance here. So we do need to be cautious here. It's one of those situations where actually on this one, what I really like the most, because we've still got a lot of upside potential, is to actually just wait either for the lows to be cleared out here and then to price to recover this level, showing me there's strength in the buying, or for price to break out above this level and then turn this to support. Yeah, because we can see the resistance that we've had through here. Sure, Mark, more crypto. We can fit some of those in. CVX and Matic. Yeah, that should take us up nicely to the end of the show, that one, mate. So thank you very much. We'll crack into those in a moment. So Vert, I've got a really clear plan here. And look, I'm looking at this much more as a longer term hold, right? So I am invested in this project. I've explained a few times as well, key areas that were really, really of interest for me, which were these lows here. Yeah, so buying into these lows here, which has worked out really nicely for us. That's why that's on the chart. Again, just reminding, coming back into these areas here, this is where buyers are going to be very prominent. So with this, I want to see price to get back above here. I'm not afraid to buy in a little bit more higher if we're showing strength into this. But ultimately, where I really want to start adding to this as a position trader is when price is coming back down here. If it was for whatever reason to start breaking back down into these lows, then ultimately this is where the fundamental side of it and the understanding of the team, the project, etc., which is why it's worth working with very good communities. Obviously, I highly rate the Bird Nest. It's where, I've been for kind of almost 4 years now. I'm head of trading over there. So I've got a wonderful trading team. I know how great our fundamental team is as well. But ultimately, just surround yourself with good people, right? I'm not a fundamental analyst. So I lean very hard on my fundamental team who bring me up to date with all this information, tell me what to look out for. They're doing deep searches into this, do a lot of due diligence, right? So that's why I like this fundamentally. So that's why I'm looking to position into this. And talking of fundamentals, so just to finish up on Vert, happily buying and just adding some down in here. Don't just blow all of your investment at once. Just, feather in 10% here, 5% there, 20% there. Ultimately, your job is to buy this cheaper as possible. But also have a plan. Maybe if price gets down to these levels, you're not so happy about that, so you do sell at a little bit of a loss. But I would say from a positioning point of view with these type of trades, if the macro environment is aligned for risk to continue, which it is, it might be a little bit shaky looking up, but we've certainly not seen any major indications that that's going to turn immediately, then these projects are for being bought, in my opinion. But make sure you're doing your own research and you understand the fundamentals and the team behind it. So that is what time have we got here? Let's take a look. Now, this, like I said, just some of my favorite people in the space and just one of my favorite projects as well, right? So I'm invested in this. I have been for a while. I bought some more recently. I explained to everybody what I'd be doing if we came back down into these levels or this one here. We're going to look at this on the 4-hour chart where all of this will start to make a lot more sense, right? So this is a company called Estate X. The recent launch, as you can see, most token launches come back up. Weak hands sell them back, but strong hands buy them, and then you get a little point of equilibrium. Price is now consolidating this area quite nicely. And I'm going to show you a few things that I'm looking out for in terms of buying more of these. Like I said, this is a long-term portfolio hold for me. These guys are disrupting the property industry. It is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that is ripe for disruption. So what do? Well, they allow you in the form of digital tokenization to be a property investor with, I think, as little as a few $100. Right, so they're breaking up these investment portfolios and allowing people to just take small percentages of this. This is so big because we're in a space where property is seen often as a really, really good hedge, but also a very good long-term investment. These guys have access all over the world, from Dubai to Singapore, UK markets, US, etc. And they have teams of people working constantly to find the very best investment projects from off-plan all the way through to existing properties. And they also even help you earn passive income on it. Like, honestly, I don't know. When I first got introduced to these guys, I think the best projects in the world are ones that slap you in the face and go, you effing twat. How obvious was this? Problem is, there's being obvious and then there's executing, and these guys have it all. Some of the most talented teams I've ever met, some of the hardest workers. Jesus, I see these guys every show I travel the world to attend or to speak at. These guys are there. They're there with some of the best and the biggest names in the industry. Not just that, outside of that, if you look at the investor pool, the companies that are involved in this, and they just got a massive Microsoft grant, which is one of the hardest ones to get in a developing space. This really, for me, is what the RWA world is all about. So let's extend the chart across here and show you what my thought process is on this, right? So this is the key area that we had in here. I explained to everyone I was buying aggressively under here. A lot of people were saying the whole thing's going to zero. Look, I've invested in a lot of projects that have gone to zero, but I tell you right now, I never thought for a second that this would be one of them. And you never know, right? But we set our parameters out because look, as much as I love these guys and I love the company, my goal and theirs as well is to get you invested in this at the best levels for you. Ultimately, it's about making this the best place it can be for the community, for the investors, and for everybody else, and for the growth of the company. So we're back at a level I love. I think we're deviating this level down at the moment. Like I said, you can check back on Twitter. Actually, he's talking about being a buyer in here. So I bought again at this level. I said, if we get back down to here, I'm buying again here. Obviously, I just don't think we're going to get here, which I know the guys at Estate X won't love me saying it, but God, I wish we did. I'd deploy so much more capital if we did, but we're not. Look, this was the key area of resistance. We got that beautiful breakout, then we got the retests along here. Price, just due to the nature of how risk assets and especially beta risk assets like this are being treated at the moment by the market, especially while we get the risk bid being taken up so heavily by the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and it's well worth showing you those here as well. Look, prosperous today. Equity market still looking strong. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ smashing all-time highs, right? We've got gold down on the day. The dollar is up a little bit, but flat. The volatility index is down. All of these things are shaping up as a pretty good day for risk, and we can see that washing through into cryptocurrency as well. And Estate X, look, 17.62% up today. All right. So for me, where would I be involved? Well, if you're not a buyer on these dips, that's absolutely fine. Just look at the kind of key levels. Something I would recommend is looking across the chart and finding these areas and these consolidations, yeah, before price really kind of ripped. So this for me here is a really nice area. Why is this important? Well, quite simply, this is the consolidation. Price is moving away. Strong move with expansion leaving displacement, meaning this gap tells me buyers are stepping in here. So as long as this holds, then I know I can position more. All right. Ultimately, price went up. We saw this retest of this area was the catalyst for this massive drive higher. So if people were buying aggressively here, why wouldn't they be buying again? Yeah. So same with this area, but this was more to do with the support and resistance flip because we hadn't had a really clean retest of it. So I was a buyer in here. And then obviously here as well, you can go onto the website. You can find ways that you can be involved. You can track the token now. I think it's launched on Mexi, other exchanges coming up. But I'm really excited for these guys. Honestly, it's my favorite project in the space at the moment. I love to bring a little bit of knowledge to the areas that I invest in. I've been a property developer previously. I've had companies working very successfully in London doing major renovation and construction projects for the private and for the public sector. So I know this industry relatively well, and I see it as one that's really ripe for disruption. So that's why I'm behind this. I've deep dived. I've spent a lot of time with the team, spent a lot of time with our team who have done the most brutal due diligence as they always do in the fundamental side of it, and everything just excites me about this. So we wanted to give you an update on this one here because, you know, again, great area to buy here. I think we reclaim this area, great area to add some more. And then I think now we've kind of, you know, we've scythed through this, so this would be looked at as resistance. But I just think if once we shift structure to the upside here, I think this thing's going to run really, really hot. And like I say, it's a long-term hold for me. So I'm just looking to buy into this at any level that I can get a good buy. Again, typically targeting support resistance flips and these nice areas of consolidation that lead to the pump, retest, and these larger moves. Okay. So what else we want to render, wasn't it? I think for one of our friends on here. Let's have a look. And see how long it's been since we were doing anything on render. So I mean, this fortunately now is not really offering us anything. Oh, new fucking trading view stuff. I'm going to delete this, guys, because we don't need this here now. Trading view now, when you hold down on the chart, it will give you the candle. It's a nice idea in principle, but then when you try and highlight things on the chart, it's just stopped working. It just made the whole thing a little bit clunkier. Anyway, I'm not going to get into slating trading view. They do provide us some with exceptional software, just a little bit buggy sometimes. Render's an interesting one here. There's a lot of untapped lows below here that just make me feel like price is coming down for them, but then there's a lot of untapped highs here as well. So what do I mean by these? These untapped lows through here make me feel like price could come down to them, but we have these untapped highs as well, drawing price higher. Ultimately, price is kind of in a semi-ugly rising wedge pattern, right? See if I can do it with this, but that, and then that. Yeah, something like that. All right. So price just compressing in. There's a higher likelihood the price drops out the bottom of these patterns, but I'm not really that concerned with that. I also have a nice condition here on the daily because we've got this bearish gap, right? I would have liked to see price take some liquidity from the lows, but yes, again, market doesn't have to do what I want it to do. I've got a beautiful draw on liquidity above in terms of the equal highs. So again, how am I looking to approach this? I'm looking to approach this as an intraday trader. I'm looking to get in some positions, into some short-term intraday positions that can then grow, that I can then pyramid when I get more confirmation on the higher time frames, ultimately leaving enough in there that I can start building swing positions if we get that favorable continuation. At the moment, the conditions are wonderfully simple. Close above this daily gap today. Yeah, there's a little bit of resistance overhead. We kind of got these local lower time frame equal highs as well, which we will look at in a moment. So we do need to be cautious about that on the lower time frames. Close above this gap, and especially if we get a good body close above here, dips back to this area are for buying into these highs. And then just to give you a little visual representation about that, what would we be looking for? Something like this, dips back to this area into here, right? And then basically we're just looking for a nice carbon copy of that above here. Yeah, half, nice strong expansion, retest of this area, ultimately resistance turning into support. So, I mean, that's the plan there on render, really. I'll move this down onto a 4-hour and take a very quick look at an hourly for you as well, bud, just so you can see. And then, Mark, we are going to get out and we'll smash out CVR, or was it CRV? CVR, I think. Yeah, CV is just make sure I'm right on that one, mate, because I get these tickers wrong all the time. CVR and CVX, yeah, and then Matic, obviously Polygon. Cool. I don't really have anything more. Again, they're quite skinny order. It's quite a skinny order block here, or area of demand. So I want to be a little bit cautious here. I've not really got anything on the 4-hour that's making me kind of jump up and say, okay, I want to really just take this. Same here on the hourly. Nice expansion coming through at the moment. In fact, how I would kind of look to trade this more and not think, but a different system that I deploy on this is using moving averages, right? So I'm looking for price to basically be in a nice sustained uptrend here. And if I'm losing things like the 9 and the 20, this is giving me a really good indication, 200 below it. What do I want to see? Well, I want to see price trading above the 200, which is the purple. And then I want to see the gap between the green, and the red, which is the 9 and 20 period EMAs. I want to see the price wicking into this and holding it. Ultimately, these dips back to the moving averages are then really good for buying. But again, you would want some confirmation on the lower time frame. When assets are trending like this, then moving averages can really be your best friend, especially when you combine that with general TA. So again, for this one, I'm really kind of focused more on the daily here. Very clean conditions. First task is to close above this and hold this area. Then see how we react to the equal highs. We get a good close above that here. Dips are for buying up to these. And then getting above this here, we're concerned about this high here, which will draw on at a later date when we need to be. But then strong moves above here and retesting these areas here as well to move on. So we're going to cover CVR, CVX, and Matic now. And then we're going to finish up. I'm going to remind myself to make sure I share this awesome OKX deal with you guys. So I'd love to see somebody from this show win some of those VIP tickets and send me a little message of them in the pit with all the crew. That would just be awesome. Or even just in some of the amazing merch they're giving away. Right, so CVR. Okay, let's see if we've got this one on here. So I've got CRV. Was that the one, Mark, or was it CVR? Let me see if I find CVX first, because it's making me think that maybe I've got the wrong one here. But let's take a look at CVX. And if you can let me know in the chat, mate, then I'll make sure that I got the right one for you. So obviously not a lot of liquidity going through this here. So let's take a look. Where did this launch on? Maybe Coinbase. Okie doke. Right. So we're seeing a little bit of an early stage breakout here, right? Looking at this on the weekly, we got a decent reaction at this weekly low. Again, look what the previous candle tells us. What do we get? Long wick, strong recovery. What's this? Bullish pin bar. CRV. No worries, mate. I'm the worst, believe me. CRV, no worries. We'll come back to that in a second, mate. Price wicks below, recovers this bullish pin bar, right? Now this, if we get the weekly close as a bullish engulfing, then I'm really looking higher on this. There's some of my favorite moves here. Price has had a beautiful Fibonacci retracement from the expansion leg. Straight into the golden pocket, wicking through that, beautiful confluence, holding this gap over here as well, this bullish gap. This just looks gorgeous actually on a weekly scale. I know people might not think that by looking at that, but in terms of all areas that algos, bots, traders, and that are going to be interesting in adding this, I think it's there at the moment. But again, weekly confirmation will help us. We get a close like this, then we can target those highs. On a daily scale, we can see a little bit of a tighter compression, but again, what do we look for here? A couple of things. We've taken out the weekly low. We now want to see some daily liquidity taken as well. Perfect. Daily liquidity taken. What else do we want to see from our little magic box of tricks if we get it? Inversion. And what else would we look for here as well? A high probability order block. This swept liquidity, high probability area of demand. I mean, we've basically got the trifecta of this thing looking bullish at the moment, all right? So on a daily scale, this looks, like I said, it looks gorgeous, right? Closed above the gap here, inverting it. So we either do one or two things. We wait for the area, we wait for the order block or area of demand to be established by price closing above it, and then ultimately dips are for buying. Or we're an early stage and aggressive trader of this recovery, and within this inversion gap after this pin bar, we've now got the secondary confirmation candle telling me even more so that price is heading higher here, and we have these beautiful equal highs here at 2.786. So let's mark them on that. Is looking absolutely nice. There's a small slither of a gap over here that price might see an initial rejection at, but ideal scenario here is we get a rejection of this gap, drawing us back to the OB, and that gives us some great buys in there. I would focus very heavily there on the 4 hour, but if this thing is going to break away and move without us, then we still need a plan. And when price is trending, like we said, we can either rely on our moving averages here. Yeah, and look at this on the hourly. Beautiful, 200 supporting it. These are fanning out. Look how all these dips have just provided beautiful buying opportunities, right? But focusing more on the price action here, this is a strong and fast move up. I wouldn't want to buy into this. Maybe this thing just runs straight away for the highs, but I'd be a little bit cautious here in truth. We might get a retrace down to this kind of level here where we've got the order block on the hourly. But again, I think I'd be waiting for price to pull back here, wait for the daily close, and then look to see if we get any dips and then recoveries, which I think would be a good buy. So CRV, let's take a look over here. CRV. What have we got going on here? Yeah, a little bit quite really a lack of liquidity across all major exchanges here with this one. So again, let's just take a look at the higher time frame here. This is USD as well, not USDT, I know, but let's see if we've got the USDT contract, should be a bit better. So on a daily scale, again, this looks okay, right? I mean, a lot of kind of soft lows down here. You can see the absorption coming in. We have left a lot of liquidity in the form of equal lows down here, which is definitely not to be ignored. No, we did sweep that out, actually. So I take that back. That's not true. We've left that low there, which is fine, actually. You know, with mark the marks, they're still relatively equal between these two, but I'm not as concerned. What I just want to see here on a daily scale for continuation, bullish continuation, that is for us to close above this bearish gap, right? Also monitoring how price closes above this high. That's the absolute clearest chart at the moment in terms of respect. We're coming into this bearish gap here. We've seen initial rejection. Price now having a daily run. We don't want to buy into those, right? We want to wait for price, close above, confirm this as support. We turn it purple. And then again, dips, we look to see if we can get involved. But ultimately, we're looking for the continuation of strength here. The 4 hour is just going to show us a lot of pretty unsustainable upwards price action. If I wanted to be super aggressive here, any dips down to this bullish gap down here, I'd be paying a lot of attention to as well. Look how price closed above and then just looks to be retesting this area perfectly. Breaking back down below this heightens the chance that we revisit this bullish gap. Or don't revisit it, we visit it for the first time, sorry. So that would be my playbook there on CRV as well. And let's finish up on Matic for our friend Mark. What do we got here? I think we've got a lot of still got here and there. Wow, that was a pretty aggressive rejection from there, wasn't it? Yeah, wow, that was you see a lot of on here, right? maybe due to some of the recent news and bits and pieces. Let's just see. Let's see something quickly. Yeah, it exists the same. So that was cool. That was brutal sell-off there. So let's kind of zoom out for a moment. What's going on the weekly? We haven't really taken any key liquidity on the weekly. We can see how we've had that really strong rejection coming in here. It's a little bit of a skinny gap and a very high time frame, right? But if we do get the close above this bearish gap here, we'd be looking for that similar kind of play. Yeah. What I would say is that's a very strong rejection at that weekly high there. So just want to be a little bit cautious. Moving on to a daily, is there anything a little bit cleaner for us here? Well, the market ground its way up. Yeah. You can see what's happening here. Kind of compression, very small expansion, compression again. Then it kind of ripped. I think this basically just would have had so many people aping into this, FOMOing in, and they've all just been annihilated. Anybody that was late to this. Daily doesn't really tell me a ton here either, right? I mean, what I would probably look at in a situation like this is kind of say, okay, where's the key? This probably looks like a relatively key area here. See from the downside wicks into here. Price is getting rejected through here. So we're at a point of resistance for sure. I think looking at this in terms of a level, that's probably my main interest here, is looking to see if price retests down here at 0.18902. Maybe we get something a little bit cleaner on the 4 hour. 4 hours had the massive spike back. Buyers have stepped back into this here, but we're really struggling for liquidity here. I think difficult to buy into this, especially after a massive rejection. I would look for pullbacks to this area and then for price to start wicking below this and show us that buyers are stepping in. But this is really interesting one here at the moment on Matic. So definitely one to watch. But unfortunately, with these big old rejection week here, I think we've got to be looking for some stability here. So a drawback to this level will be key. All right, legends. So one more thing to share with you before we go. Let me see if I can do this without completely messing it up. So if you would like to be part of the wonderful OKX F1 giveaway, then you just need to go through to the website. All right, you can kind of hit me up and I'll definitely be happy to send you through a link to it as well. In fact, let me see if I can share one here in the channel with you right now. And then you guys can go and just get involved in it straight away. In fact, yeah, here we go. Boom. All you need to do is just go along to that link and then follow along here. Yeah. Click join now to participate. Yeah. Or participate now button. And then you need to trade your first crypto. It's just, you only need to do a very, very small amount on there. And then you just need to fill in the form in terms of getting the details for your F1 cap. And then you go into a prize pool to win some VIP days at the Dutch Grand Prix, which is just awesome. Like I say, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to the Netherlands or not, but oh my days, it is just a wonderful, wonderful place. All right. And to watch the F1 over there is just going to be something else. So just go along and that's all you have to do. Yeah, just follow those instructions and then you're all set and ready to go. So I'm going to leave you with a little ad at the end as well that will help you as well with that. But do let me know if you go into it. I'd love to see pictures of you with your awesome caps on, and anybody that wins that would love it if you came from this show. Anyway, just want to wish you all a fantastic and safe week ahead. Be good to one another. All right. And then I'm going to see you back here on the live show on Monday. And yeah, wish you all a fantastic close of week and weekend. And just remember to keep one eye on the FOMC meeting later on today. Take care, legends.